Okay, this is Feng Shui Double Wise, part 3 of the Lion King 3 ideas and the Lion King 2 comparison and look back. Okay, so in the last video, I left off at, Kovu Vitani. I already decided, like, it'd be cool to have them twins, that'd be perfect idea, and representation of their parents are basically. Okay, so, with heights, here's the deal. There's gonna be 6 main characters in this. I'm jumping a bit forward, but that's how it's gonna be. And I was thinking about, like, okay, there are 6 of them, and basically, there's Simba, he's the oldest. Then there's Nala, his queen. Then there's their daughter Kiara. And then there's Nuka, Vitani, and Kovu. And I gave them a nickname. I call them Royale Six. That's the nickname I gave that group. And you're probably thinking, wait, how can Nuka and Vitani, like, yeah, sure, they may have been like considered a princess or prince back when they were, in the Outlands and everything, but how are they this now? Well, I'll explain that later, but basically they end up in the royal family in a sense. They end up having like a duty in a sense, like a duty when Kovu ends up taking the throne. They'll have like a major domo guard thing, and so they're called the Royal Six because obviously Kovu is the heir to the throne now. Now that he's with Kiara, and the thing about with Kiara is like he's the heir. There was this thing at the end of the movie. It's like Rafiki. It's like he just touched his staff on them, and then they hugged. It's like what was that? A ceremony? And it's like oh, it's a wedding. Like people just assumed it. Like this is how much they did not like the Lion King 2. Well, again, they did not explain anything. There was no real explanation as to how all this came from. Even when Simba exiled the Outlanders, where were they when Where were they when Scar and Simba were fighting? We just saw hyenas. Why did you brought this out of nowhere? Where were they? I'll get into that part later too. But basically, think about sorry, what was I? Okay, so basically it was Zira and everything. Like, okay, so they didn't explain a lot. And like Simba and everything. It's like so we got the 6 main characters. Royal Six. I'm sorry, I kind of lost track. Um, but basically, like okay, with height. I was thinking of height and age. Simba is the tallest. Kind of obvious. He's the oldest and the tallest. That's kind of how it works in these things. Most of the time, I guess. I mean, because Timon's way old and Pumbaa are way old. Like everybody you saw in the first film are like way older than he is, but he's still the tallest. And in the group, in the 6, in the group, he's the oldest. And then I'm pretty sure Kiara would be the youngest. And then like Nala, she's second tallest. And Nuka would technically, I'd imagine just a little bit shorter than Nala. And on that same side, a little bit shorter than Zira too. Because you saw a scene, if you see 2 scenes, there's one where Nuka was visibly taller than his sister, and then there was Vitani and Kovu. You saw them at the same height, so he's taller than both of them. So okay, Simba, tallest. Nala, second tallest. Nuka, third tallest. Govumvitani, the fourth and fifth tallest, because Nuka's taller than both of them, and Nuka is slightly shorter than Zira, whom is also about the same height, I'm assuming, as Nala. And the thing is about their age, like, okay, she was an obsessively devoted follower, so she doesn't have to be in the same age group as Scar, so I'm thinking, okay, here's how I think it. She's the same generation as Simba, just older. Like when Simba was a kid, she was a teenager kind of thing. Like she was a teenager when he was a kid. Like that's how I'm pretty sure like it's the same generation but older. Kind of like how a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old are like brothers, but they're still the same generation. They're just 10 years apart maybe. Just an example. So anyways, that clears up the height deal mostly. Kiara is obviously the shortest because you could tell she was shorter than Kovu and he and Vitani are the 4th, 5th tallest. And age. The thing about age is I was mentioning before, Nuka would probably be like a 28-year-old. Kovu would be maybe 23. Same, and then Vitani the same. Kiara probably like 18, 20. Simba would probably be a middle-aged guy, but he was young. Like they were young. Kiara has young parents because Simba took the throne earlier than he was planned to take it. So he's probably a 20. He's probably in his like mid 40s or something, and Nala's just slightly younger. Or she may or may not be a little bit older. I'm not entirely sure. But basically, so what you're thinking is like, with with all this going on, it's like there's a lot to clear up, basically, because all these plot holes and there was nothing explained. And pretty much, sorry, I lose my train of thought. So okay, we got the three siblings deal. We got Kiara, and we can pretty much assume that Kiara had minimal friends. Like I know it's kind of early to be jumping into this, but that's I'm not entirely sure where I'm going with that, but okay, so we got Simba, Nala. They're the oldest of the group. We got Nuka, Kovu, Bitani, and Kiara. But in the order of the group, it's where the first member is Simba, the second is Nala, the third is Kiara, because she's a daughter of the two. Nuka is the fourth, because he's the oldest of that trio of his siblings. Vitani's the fifth, and L, that's where I was. And Kovu's the sixth, because he's the youngest of those three. But the way it works, like, how can they be twins, and then he's, like, they describe he was the last born. Kobe was the last born kid, but if I may be telling Kobe twins, you're probably thinking, oh, he was born minutes after Vitani was, so she is technically the middle child, even though that was just a mere minutes difference. And I'm gonna use that I'm gonna like use that to where like minutes after Zero had Vitani, she then has Kovu, like goes into labor a second time. It's like, oh my god, it's twins. And I'll describe that later. I don't want to spoil a lot of it, but I'll just be brief about it. And basically, that clears up the age and height thing. And there's like one of the things is the relationship, like how Nuka and Kovu were. You assume that Nuka's just like Scar, because most people at first assumed he was Scar's son, but they confirmed that's not the deal. But and another big problem, actually, one of the biggest problems that's bigger than right now is the colors. The colors were very, very inconsistent, especially with Nuka and Vitani. The colors were unclear. They were one color the next scene and another color the different. It's like you tried to paint a realistic portrait, but you only like half finished the coloring. You know what I mean? Like, see me right now? I got like shades of blue, or maybe like a certain shade of white since I'm in a certain light. I know that rhymed, but my skin is mostly white and a bit tan, but you can't tell because of the light, because like it's realistic lighting. They tried doing that and my eyes look blue, but they're actually green. See, but if it's a trick of a light, and see they kind of didn't do it right. But the guys who did the art were mediocre and sucked. You remember the fire scene? How terrible it was. It's like somebody added a special effect on Vegas Pro or something. It was terrible. But anyways, like I said in the part one, I believe, somebody uploaded a thing where they found okay, I found their colors. I'm pretty sure these are their colors. And Vitani is a bit of a darkish tan with a little tiny bit of yellow in there, like sandy in a sense, a sandy color. And Nuka, he's dark like his brother. He looks like, basically, here's how I imagine it. Nuka's fur looks like chocolate milk, Kobu's fur looks like fudge, and Vitani's fur kind of looks like toffee or sand. But that's the best I can explain it, but, like, you get a general idea of what the colors are. And, basically, there's another thing we have to go over, and that's, genetics. Like, how Kobu, Vitani, and Nuka, like, how do they look like that? You look at their mom, and they only got, like, you only see a small percentage of what they have as genetic traits. Alright, 8:45 on the clock. I'm just going to go ahead and end this video now, and in part 4, I'm going to go more in depth into the genetics of the characters, and genetics in general that can be applied to this. Over and out.